Hey, we are live. I got
All
the
right.
indicator.
Awesome.
How's everybody doing? It's still cold here. How are you down there, Aaron?
It's cold. We just got snow this week, which most people will laugh about it. We got 1 inch, so we were out of school for 2 days.
Yeah, I lived in the Pacific Northwest for a little bit, and I remember getting it wasn't. I mean, it was such a joke, but there were people cross country skiing
Yeah.
down the road. Where here, uh, yeah, businesses were shutting down, all kinds of
Yeah.
craziness for an inch.
It doesn't
But
take much, but people don't know how to drive in the rain here, much less the snow. So we may as well keep them off the roads.
what state are you in? I knew you
I'm in
were south.
Tennessee.
You're in Tennessee. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right
Yeah.
outside of Nashville. So
And for anybody that's not aware, Aaron has another YouTube channel. You do a lot of vintage as well
yeah.
as
Yeah.
it seems like lately a lot of CD players
Yep.
has kind of been
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
topic for you.
Yeah, so uh I have so I have a vintage booth in an antique mall that's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The store's called Four Sisters, and I've had it for about a year and a half now. And my wife and I also go and we sell at record shows on the weekends, here or
Oh,
there.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm heading to Louisville tomorrow for a record show, and it's just like our sons are in college now. It's like empty nest energy for me. It's either that or just probably stumble into a ditch somewhere and find trouble. You know how that goes.
No, but it's
So
a lot of fun.
oh, it's so much fun. And so I do sell some vintage gear. I've been buying and selling vintage gear for the last 10 years or so. And so the reason why I've kind of been making these CD videos is because the CD sales in my booth, I sold twice the number of CDs last month than I did vinyl records.
Wow.
And at shows, a lot of younger folks are coming up to us and they are wanting to buy CDs to play in their vintage cars, which I'm sure you'll love that, Kevin.
Right.
And it's a lot of it's not like a blanket genre thing. It's very specific, so it's like you would love this because I think we're right on the same age, probably listen to the same music, but it's a lot of like Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Sublime, those CDs just fly off, so I started making some videos with my experience about selling CDs and even collecting them myself, and it's just been so popular that I've just been too scared to make a video about anything other than CDs, thanks to the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, but why not? If that's what people want to hear,
Yeah.
that's what you give them. I get it.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
I do have a couple of vintage receivers lined up. I know I've reached out for advice to you with one. I still haven't made a video on that one. I'm holding that one back for a surprise because it's such a weird one. But I've been buying. I like to just buy them because I've been collecting them for years, and so I do have some lined up. So I am going to start making some vintage receiver videos, and I've got some cool cassette decks and stuff. But just kind of playing it by ear right now. It's starting the top of the year with some big videos for CDs, which I'm not going to complain about. So
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, we've seen a small influx in it too, and we don't really push or advertise that we buy CDs because for the most part, most people, you're absolutely on it though with the 90s.
yeah,
That stuff sells.
yeah,
And so we do, if we can get them in really good shape, we'll put them out on the floor, and we see the same thing where it usually is younger, early 20s, late teens, and they come in and they'll grab the whole stack and sit down on the floor and flip through them, and they're there for a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely been an uptick, and we've sold actually quite a bit more CD players.
That's awesome.
Recently, there for a long time, I mean, I was just flat out, not interested.
100%.
And now, we've got a Cambridge CD player, and we offer a couple others, but I definitely, and I did watch your video on the one you put out yesterday, the vintage versus new.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely in the new camp on the CD players for the same reasons.
Yeah.
We've had so many, that we've put out on the shelf. We just go through it, make sure everything's working fine, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, it's always the drawer. It needs a belt. I haven't had a laser go bad, but we haven't sold that many, to have that happen. Yeah. But it's usually mechanisms that are the problem.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I realized in having a YouTube channel and talking about gear or being someone that somebody that people might look to, that and they ask for advice. And the YouTube channel really came from people always asking me the same questions over and over about vintage gear, turntables, this stuff. So I was like, you know what, if I make videos, I'll just send them the video, you know? And so but as somebody that gets asked the question a lot, I don't want to tell them, go, you have to go buy a vintage CD player, and not point out what's going to go wrong eventually,
Absolutely.
because
Sure.
that's not that's bad karma for me, you know? And so however, there's people out there, and had a lot of comments on that video from people that have had CD players that have worked for 30 years, and I think that's
Yep.
awesome. But
Yep.
like for the most part, you know, if I'm talking to somebody who's in college and they're 20, you know, so my sons are in college, they're 21. I have twin sons. So oftentimes when I'm thinking about people getting into our hobby, I'm thinking about talking to them, right? And so
Yeah.
if they're at Goodwill or whatever and they find one of these Sony Carousel CD players, they're thinking, man, score, you know,
Sure.
$12.99. And then they
Sure.
get it home and it doesn't work, you know, and
Yeah.
then they don't know how to fix it. And so oftentimes when I'm talking about, you know, I always want to give the pros of vintage versus the pros of new. And that's what's so great about your channel. Congrats on 100,000
Oh,
subscribers,
thank you.
by the
Yeah.
way. That
We
was really
actually just
awesome.
got the plaque
The
here.
plaque? That's awesome. That's
Yeah, we
so
got it.
cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But you guys do such a great job of balancing that expectations as well. And I just think that's part of our responsibility, you know, as somebody that encourages people in this hobby, you know, is to give the pros and cons of each side. So
Well, it's tough though, you know. I mean, and I know you know that as well, because you know some people, you know, it's like the whole why don't you put samples up,
yeah.
you know, that whole thing, and it makes it really difficult, you know, or why don't you say which one sounds better, and that's really difficult as well, because you know we see that in the store every single day. People
Yeah.
come up and they say which one sounds better, and I go, you know, that's the beauty of the store.
Yes.
You know, you can listen to as many of these as you want,
Yeah.
and you can make that decision,
Yeah.
because me telling you what I think sounds better is absolutely irrelevant.
Yeah.
But
I was just watching a video, and then I promise I'll get to our topic here. I'm I'm a rabbit hole guy. I jump all over the place. But I just watched a video by a very young creator in their 20s talking about like this is why young people like old things. And one of it, you know, one of the points was, you know, that they like the tactile figuring everything out. And I think one of the things that people forget nowadays is that when you go online and I just watched a video of yours where you were trying to compare two speakers, and you had your own thought, you read about it online, and then you listened and you were like, oh, and maybe changed your mind. There's so much information online now. I think people forget there was a time when all of us would just go to a store and buy something and have zero idea. And you
yeah,
had to learn as you go along and define your own taste. And that meant buying, selling, trading, you know, that's what was fun. And then you figured out your own thing. And I think so many people now are just scared of making the wrong decision. That's why I don't like to tell people what sounds better than something else, because I don't know. And even if it's the wrong decision, you can simply move on and try to find something else down the line. It's not going to be the end of the world, you know? Like,
yeah, especially if you buy secondhand and stuff like that.
yeah.
As long as you're not overpaying, you can usually, you
Yep.
know, try it, move on from it,
Yep.
and start the whole rabbit hole and addiction process that I think most of us end up getting bit by. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got oh, I'm sorry. We got a super chat. Definitely want to mention that. I should be editing, but I'm here. Cool.
No, that's great.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Matt. Yeah. Matt.
Yeah, cool.
Matt is great. Matt has a great channel. He and I, we last probably year or so have covered a lot of the same sort of some of this fun-fi, I guess is what people call it. Some of these
Yeah.
budget amps and things. So Matt and I are in constant communication via text to figure out if we're losing our minds on the number of amps sent to us that are pretty much the exact same every day.
Yeah, that's tough. I feel really bad for the reviewers. You know, I don't consider myself a reviewer,
Yeah.
you know, but having to explain, you know, or try and describe nuanced differences between a lot of products of the same category with the same,
Yeah.
you know, DAC chips in them. I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Yeah, well, Matt has a great channel. Everybody should follow along, because above and beyond those type reviews, he's done a lot of great videos recently just on sort of audiophile habits, listening habits, lots of great stuff. And I know he's got some great videos along the way. I think some of us that are kind of been reviewing a lot of these same products over and over, kind of trying to, think of maybe some more topical fun things to talk about rather than just, a $90 amp with the 3255 chip that we've all seen a million times. So
yeah, it's kind of the game though.
yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, I'm trying to think of ways to talk about a Pioneer SX780 that I haven't, already regurgitated 10 times as well too. So
I know.
it's just part of it.
Well, I already beat you to the side-by-side comparison with the 980. I put that video out about a year and a half ago. So, but
Yeah,
I had the same thing. I was like, cool, it's a 780. What am I going to do? So,
I don't know if I should thank you or tell you I'm sorry. This hobby, yeah, it can be a real addiction, and it's becoming more of an expensive addiction, and that's kind of the premise for this live stream. And really that, I know you have a background in thrifting.
Yeah.
I knew you had the secondhand shop,
Yeah.
or the space that you sell out of.
Yeah.
And there was a point where, I did a lot of, I was on the road a lot.
Yeah.
And I there wasn't a Goodwill, thrift store, Salvation Army I didn't know about in the 5-state area that I didn't visit as often as possible.
Yep.
And then I would just bring the stuff that, I found, put it on eBay.
Yep.
And my basement turned into, you know what it looked like. I don't even have to explain it.
I do.
And, but it was, a great second income. It was a good education because, you do have to do your homework before you sell something. And I have not been thrifting nearly as much as I used to, and I think most people are in agreement, that landscape has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Even in the last 5-6 years. Is that, I mean, are you kind of feeling the same way about it?
I am. I just released a video, one of the videos I did in relation to the CD topic, but could really expand to electronics as well. Is so many people are commenting on videos about CDs like, oh, I buy them for cheap in the thrift shops. And I'm like, that's cool. So I spent a whole day driving around, and I could barely find any to even look through, much less buy. Do you know what I mean? So the days of you remember you go and there would just be boxes of records, and it would be like Andy Williams and all the bad stuff, right?
Crystal Gale.
I don't even find those boxes of records in the store anymore. And I think that they've just stopped putting them out. And then I've noticed that now with CDs, and there is definitely a lack of electronics available. And so I think the landscape has definitely changed. I will be honest with you. I probably can't name I don't have an example of where I found a Marantz 2270 at Goodwill. Do you know what I mean? I don't have that in my own personal experience. But a friend of mine found, let's see, what is she found a 2250B in a thrift store, paid $50 for it. It didn't work, but I helped her, I helped work with her to find someone to help repair it for her, and she loves it. So the funny thing about thrifting is I want to make a blanket statement, 2 blanket statements. The first is you can't find good stuff in a thrift store anymore. And then the second statement is someone's going to find something awesome in a thrift store
and post it online
and post it on Facebook. I mean, in the vintage groups I'm in Facebook.
Yeah, it's constant.
There's always somebody that finds something. And then there's 100 comments with people complaining about how it is. So my thing with thrifting is, and you know this because you've already said it, you just got to go
all the time.
And all the time. And I mean, I have a full-time job. I do I do YouTube. I do the vintage booth. I sell on the weekends. So I go when I can, but I also understand that I can't really say that they're never there because there's no telling, how quickly they sold before I made it there, if that makes sense.
Well, and there's a couple things there too. Oddly enough, we have a dollar bin section for records, and some of them are not bad. It's not all Crystal Gale stuff like that. And I actually took them to a small thrift shop.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even take them.
I know.
I had to take them to the Goodwill because the Goodwill will take just about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm in 100% agreement with you. There's a lot of times I go to even small independent thrift shops and they don't have records and CDs and stuff like that anymore.
Yeah.
And, it's really unfortunate. But, 5-6 years ago, I was finding speakers in thrift stores.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I think that was, with Goodwill online, that type of thing, it's still hard to ship speakers.
Yes.
So I think a lot of the speakers, if they are getting brought into, small thrift shops, they're going out on the floor.
Yep.
Whereas the receivers and the turntables are just automatically going to shopgoodwill.com.
I looked yesterday before this call. I did some research, Kevin, because I'm a professional YouTuber. So, and I just Googled like receivers, like just to see what was available. Sure. There, just on Goodwill's online site, there was a Pioneer SX650, a Sansui 6060, Pioneer SX 1000 TW, which I'm not that familiar with, but it had like a really nice wooden cabinet on it. I was like, man, look at that thing. There was a realistic STA 2100 that was already bid up to $700. And there was a STA 2080 that was already over $300. And that was yesterday. So they've probably gone up since then or sold. So to your point, I don't think they want to mess with shipping speakers. But I think the minute they see any electronic, because honestly, I was wading through so many AVRs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just black box receivers that, they're just trying to offload at $9.99 each. Sure. That I think anything that just goes straight there, because I don't see those out.
Really, no, I don't either.
Yeah.
No. The only thing in the electronic section at our local Goodwills is usually like hair dryers and small appliance type stuff, toaster ovens and mice and keyboards.
Mine is DVD players. So many of those so many of those small, cheap Sony CD players. The funny thing is, like Goodwill or thrift stores, generally speaking, are selling them for $20 or something, and you can buy a brand new one on Amazon for like 30. So I find that humorous. But those are really popular in my store. Occasionally, I do remember seeing a Denon like dual cassette deck recently. And I took a picture of it, posted it on my Instagram, because I post a lot of of my thrifting stuff that I find on Instagram that's just like weird stuff, But and everyone was like, "Oh man, you should have bought it." And I'm just like, I can't even tell you how many broken cassette decks I have in my life. It's getting divorce level, Kevin. It's like, did you bring home another cassette deck? I'm like, don't worry, I'm gonna fix this one. And guess how many I've actually properly fixed. Do you guys even repair?
No, never have. I mean, I've tinkered with a couple, and enough to know that this is not for us, not for a resale shop that wants to hold some credibility, because
that's very true.
When you have, it's different, private seller, it doesn't matter. You could essentially be like, well, I hope it lasts you a week.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
With brick and mortar store with Google reviews, social media and stuff like that, you just don't want people having bad experiences.
No.
So you have to be extra picky.
My sister owns a bakery, and she'll get reviews like, this color green was slightly different than the green in the photo that I sent you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was a delicious cake. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, which should be the whole point. Should be the experience you got eating it, not judging the color greens. So I can only imagine from your experience that's the case. It's funny that we're talking about this too, because just last week, my niece sent me a text from a Goodwill in Alabama that just opened up, and they had an Akai MX10, I think, reel to reel. Mm-hmm. And it still had the take-up reel. It had both reels on it, and it had everything on it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Kevin. I don't like reel to reels. I mean, but I was like, how much is that?
Right.
And she was like, I don't know. I'm asking. There's no price on it. Do you want to guess how much they wanted to charge for it? It looked in decent shape. They said it powered on.
Yeah, I don't.
$99.99.
Yeah.
Which, if you can get it, you can get it. But I can't pay $100 because my niece, it was funny. She was like, I looked it up on eBay. It's like $300, which was very sweet. But I was like, but by the time I get it and realize it doesn't work, it's $300-400 in expenses.
Sure. Yeah. and
Yeah.
you're not wrong. But just bought a pair of L810s based on your opinion. They're fantastic. Selling my Magna pans. Love these. Yeah, 810s are just, those things are incredible. You ever heard of a set of ADS
So I'm
speakers?
so glad this came up because when you politely tagged me in that video last year,
Oh
and
yeah, sure.
because I have a pair of Klipsch Heresies, so I played that angle up a bit for
Yeah,
fun. This over the holiday break, some guy was like, "I got a pair of ADS. They're 620s, and they were for sale." In Alabama, so I'm in Tennessee, and I bought them, and it was like a 4-hour round trip drive when we talk about the sickness that we all have here.
yeah.
But I drove down and picked those up mostly because I've got so many friends that have told me great things, but I've never heard them, and I hate to tell you this, they're sitting down there, and I haven't even hooked them up yet.
Oh
But
man,
I know I'm really excited. I actually just got this Scott like 20-watt tube amp from like
yeah.
1958. So
Nice, nice, nice.
I've got a friend who's a tech, and this is the best thing you can ever have because he doesn't want to. He's fine for me to pay him, but he doesn't want to. Nashville doesn't have a repair shop, by the way, which
Interesting.
surprises a lot of people. And we used to have one for years, and it went out of business, so we don't have one. So now and he loves like restoring tube stuff. So I found this amp in Cincinnati while visiting family, got a great deal on it, brought it to him. He completely rebuilt it. So I'm going to put that with those ADS because I think
Oh, cool.
that's probably going to be pretty sweet. But
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I just got to sit down and do it. So, but the 810s, I think I watched a video recently of you talking about 810s, and I went on Facebook Marketplace looking to see if I could find some, but no luck yet. So
Yeah, they're hard to find, but you do see them. You know, they pop up here and there.
Yeah,
I've had a few friends recently pick some up too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, one other thing I definitely wanted to talk about from the thrifting angle. I used to bribe the people at the stores.
I was going to bring this up. I haven't done it, but I was going to say there's 2 things happening at thrift stores. 3. 1, it goes direct to a online sale. 2, they've got a hookup. Well, somebody's taking care of them because people tell me this all the time that this is what they do. And or 3, all the retired guys are out there. No offense to you guys, I can't wait to be retired. But they're just right there when the door opens, and they, it's the first, like estate sales. I never get anything because I know a few guys in town. They're all retired, just what they love to do, and I love it for them. So they can be there at 3 a.m. and sit in a chair till the door opens.
Yeah.
But the bribing thing is something that I know happens, and it can be as cheap as a pizza or maybe a 6-pack of beer or something. I don't know.
Well, what I would do after a while is I would just go in and I'd say, give me a call, and whatever they're asking for it, I'll double it, and then you can put that part in your pocket. So they would just, I would get text messages. Most of the time it wasn't anything I was interested in, but every once in a while, they'd send me something really cool, and I'd be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'd meet them out back and hand them their cash, and that was quite a while ago, but it definitely helps if you can get in good with the local estate sale people. I knew every single estate sale company, and I had their number, and they would call me, they would shoot me a message because they would rather deal with me, and I would pay up for some things, so that was another thing that definitely worked, because that side of it has even gotten crazy where if somebody's putting on an estate sale and there's any kind of vintage stereo equipment of value, there's 30 people waiting for that estate sale to open, and they're paying almost eBay prices a lot of times.
They are
almost more.
For an item they can't test. A lot of times they're just taking their word for it that it's going to even work.
Well, and that's the thing with Goodwill online. Have you ever bought anything?
I did. I tried it out a couple times. Can you return things to that?
No, nothing I've ever bought, because I've had them show up, and it just rattled. Yeah, totally obliterated.
Yeah. The shipping on that makes me nervous. There used to be this website called Everything But the House. I don't know if you remember that, and they would do online auction so you'd go on and bid, and it was high end stuff. I mean, whatever. And one time I bought a bunch of radios. I love like vintage radios, and it showed up in like 3 of them, and they were like those cool like Art Deco Bakelite type. They were just
Oh, sure.
trashed. You know what I mean? Because they didn't know how
Yeah.
to ship them, and they put them all in
Yeah.
one box, and they just showed up destroyed. And I was like, I just can't. I know you guys don't ship stuff. It's like I don't know how people. I don't know how people feel comfortable spending thousands of dollars on some of these beast units
Yeah.
online and expect them to show up without. A friend of mine just bought a Macintosh online last year. It showed up bent.
That's
Bent.
what. Yeah. No,
The
the
chassis was
amount
bent.
I've seen it so many times. Those stories come in the door all the time.
Yeah. And he bought it from a reputable shop. I mean, like similar to yours, that knew what they were doing. But once you let that thing go, you don't know what it's gonna
No.
look like when they're throwing it in and out of the truck.
Yeah, it's really sad. And a lot of people, I don't think they realize, I think that has a lot to do with why this stuff's going up in value so much too,
Yeah.
because you have to think about how many of these pieces of equipment are being shipped every single day.
Oh, I know.
And out of every one of them that's being shipped, how many of them are being destroyed?
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are just dwindling like crazy.
I know.
And, this is another thing I thought was interesting too, because, how do you feel about flippers? Do you have an opinion? Because, on the Facebook groups, you bring up flippers and it's war.
Well, I love this question. I'm trying to approach it like a politician, because I think some people would probably call
Just
me.
do this.
Yeah. I am not a flipper. I mean, I flip things.
Right.
I would, I like to differentiate between the word flipper and like, because there's like flipper and collector, right? So like as a collector, I love vinyl records, but occasionally like I have too many. So sometimes I go online and I sell records, or I sell them in my booth, or I sell them at a show. In fact, I just went through, purged some old records that I haven't listened to in years, and I'm going to take those to this show this weekend. What am I going to do with that money? I'm going to buy more records, or I'm going to buy a receiver or whatever. So a lot of me and my friends, we always joke about the PayPal account. Do you know what I mean? Like my married friends and I, it's like, you have like the PayPal account, right? Like the money goes in, the money goes out, but it's not family money, right?
Right.
And so when you kind of have a collecting sickness, I think you tend to buy some things, sell some things, you make it work. But oftentimes it's just to be able to keep what you want, either at a better price. And sometimes it's cool because you can pass something along to someone else that's just getting into the hobby. You don't want to take advantage of them, but if you're making 50, $100, like that's great, And so if you're just flipping it to flip it, I don't know. I struggle on that one, because some people do use this to pay off debt. Do you know what I mean? Like there are some people that are trying to use it to help them make money that they can use to make their lives better. So there's that. But then, there are occasionally the people that just find something for $25 and put 2,000 on it on eBay and cross their fingers,
Yeah, but my theory on it and my opinion on it really is, it doesn't really matter. The amount of times that I have bought things that aren't sellable, you know what I mean? You go and buy something, or you buy 10 things.
Yes.
And 5 out of the 10,
yes,
you can sell because they actually work. You don't have to put a lot of money into them, and you can make a little bit of money to maybe buy something else. That whole trade up thing you just described.
Yep.
And so, the other thing is the amount of time that it requires to go to those Goodwills every single day, thrift stores every single day, all the estate sales, the auctions, all that thing.
Yep.
There's a lot of time investment, and there's a lot of monetary investment that you might not get back. So there's a good amount of risk.
Yeah.
So, I understand why I understand why the argument's there, and why some people really look down on flipping.
Yeah.
As somebody that used to flip, I see the other side of the coin where, like I just said, it is a lot that goes into that, and it doesn't always work out for you.
We sell at vintage clothing shows a lot, like vintage markets, right? So it's a much younger audience, and so again, they're like my kids' age, right? So we're walking around, and I'm seeing Nirvana shirts for $600. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm always like, oh, check out that Sonic Youth shirt. I'm like, oh, okay, 600. I'm gonna leave it here, but and so it always fascinates me because a lot of my sons will go shop there and they're buying stuff that they could find at the thrift store for $8, but they're paying 60.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this with some of my colleagues who are closer to my son's age, and they were like, "Oh, no. Like, they're like, I would rather you find it and pay you and
Sure.
me not have to bother driving around and going through racks and racks and racks. It's a convenience for them. It's a
Absolutely.
convenience tax." And so if I found a unit, this is where I don't have any trouble with it. If I find a unit for, $100 and I spend the time to go in and I clean it, maybe put some new bulbs in it, make sure it works. I test every single input, hook
Mhm.
up everything, and then I sell it to someone for like 300. Like, is that really that bad? Like, people tell me all the time I don't really consider my time when I'm, doing the booth and all that stuff. And that's true. I just do it for fun. Do you know what I mean? So like,
Sure.
but I'm not going to charge them 600. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to take advantage of
Well,
them.
see, I'm gonna get as much money out of as I can, and I don't.
Well,
Well,
you've got overhead, my friend. You've
well,
got
no.
overhead.
Even pre-overhead though, because you're playing with averages.
That's true.
And one home run might pay for 5
That is true.
that you lost on.
Yeah.
And I don't. I'm not trying to deceive people, or I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody, but if you can find something at a good price and sell
Yeah.
it for a lot more,
Yeah.
I don't see where the issue is there. But
I mean, I found a point and shoot camera, a little like Yashica camera. I paid $3.99 for it. This was years ago. Again, like Goodwill doesn't even sell cameras anymore. They just send them right to their auction sites. $3.99. I mean, I sold it for $350 like same day. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it was some collector piece, and it like film photography's back. Do you know what I mean? So like
yeah,
someone like people our age, like so much of that stuff is back in, and like the analog thing or whatever, that like, I sell as many cassette tapes and CDs that I do as vinyl records or turntables or whatnot, So like, to your point though, I have probably 8 turntables in my storage unit that don't work, that I need to fix so that I can sell. And I know a guy who loves doing it, and I'm probably this close to just calling him like, "You want to just come get these?" Like,
yeah. Do a package deal.
yeah, just
Yeah,
find a home for him. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've run out of time to really give it the attention it deserves. But I bought a Sansui 2000X a couple weeks ago, and I had to buy it with a bunch of gear. This is the other thing that a lot of people don't really take into account. It's like a lot of times people just want to get rid of everything, so you don't
Oh
get to
yeah,
cherry pick.
yeah,
So
yeah,
bunch of CD players came with it that didn't work, you know what I mean? And now I've got
yeah,
the burden of, electronically recycling them, which probably means I'll have to pay more, So,
yeah, yeah,
it can be a slippery slope.
yeah. And it's an easy way to really let the collection get really out of hand.
Yeah, I know.
You
I
know,
know. I
yeah,
know.
it's bad.
It can be really bad. It can be really bad. I think most of the people, like your audience, you have such a great audience, and when it comes to vintage stuff. So, I think that I think they understand the sickness here. So,
I think they do too. We do. We have an amazing audience. I'm so thankful for that. That's something Eric, the guy that polishes up my videos for me,
yeah,
says is, the amount of negative comments is really small. It should be a
yeah,
lot more than it
yeah,
is. And
yeah,
I'm really grateful for that. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Have you experienced the same thing, or is most of your audience really, or do you get
Um,
beat up?
I think it depends on the topic. You know, Yeah, it depends on the topic. I think most people are nice, and I try to be nice back to them. I just try to avoid like I think we were talking about this maybe before we started, but I just really try to not be the most definitive person. Like you have to do this or you have to do that or this is the best sounding thing ever. And so when people come back, when people make those statements, in my recent video, I've got this really cool indie artist music that I pay for a licensing thing with, and it's beats, right? And
Yeah,
literally somebody left a comment like, "That's the worst garbage I've ever heard. Why don't you pick real music?" Like, that's not fair to anybody. Those just kind of get left behind. But I think that there's a lot of great people out there that like the gear. I tend to bounce around a lot, between the vintage and all this stuff. So, but I saw you had Scott up there. Scott Stereo Niche is a great channel as well. I email Scott
yeah,
all the time. I email you and Scott and Lenny and Ed and I'm always like, hey, there's this piece of gear near me, and it's like priced this much. Is this good? You know, like sometimes I just need a mental, like, you know, no, you paid too much, you know, something like that. So
Yeah, it's I think there's a really great vintage community out there
it's
on
awesome.
YouTube.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. Scott, I think, is in North Carolina, which isn't too far from me. So I'm hoping to get over there sometime and say hi. You're like 11 hours for me, which it's a bit of a
Yeah.
haul.
Yeah. Nobody's around me. I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's really bad. I love Iowa though. I do, even with
Uh-huh.
all of its warts and everything. There's just really good people here, and
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
yeah.
Does Iowa have a lot of like independent thrift stores, or is it mostly chain like Goodwill and things like that?
We have a lot of Salvation Army and Goodwill,
Yeah,
and then there's a couple, I think, more local
yeah,
thrift store types. But
yeah,
the one thing about Iowa, and I think this is probably common, in most states, if you get half hour, 45 minutes outside of Des Moines, which is
yeah,
still a relatively small city,
yeah.
it really increases,
Mhm.
the good stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
it's probably just that it's not as picked over,
yeah,
but I used to do, being on the road all the time, that was when I would find some really
yeah.
crazy stuff,
I mean,
especially vinyl records. That
oh
was more
yeah,
common than anything,
yeah. Uh, I'm in Nashville, which has just been completely flipped at this point. Like, if you're thinking about moving to Nashville, just hold for a minute, okay? We got
Uh,
some people, we got enough, okay? Um, but I've been here since '96, so I don't know, like almost 30 years now, and so it's just been flipped. It's hard to find stuff,
yeah,
and so I end up like those ADS speakers. I drove 2 hours down to Alabama and then 2 hours back. So like for me, it's like Alabama or Georgia or like like Arkansas, like, like if I'm going
yeah,
really far, like, or Ohio, where my wife is from, I always find great stuff in Ohio. And you always make a great point of this in your videos, which is that when you're talking about pricing things, you have to price based on your market. And so I can find that H Scott amp that I bought everywhere I've seen it's $1,000. I got it for 425. Do you know what I
mhm,
mean? In Ohio, which I thought was a great price, and I put a ton of money into it to get it rebuilt. But like I'm going to keep it forever, and I basically paid what the $1,000 would have been from somebody that I'm not sure if they had it repaired locally. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
sometimes you do have to just get out of town and be willing to take some gambles, and that's the other big thing about. I think that people forget. I think a lot of thrift stores don't want to deal with returns. And
no
so
businesses do really,
no businesses do. And
yeah,
so when I go to Goodwill and people give Goodwill a lot of grief, but they do a lot of good work for providing jobs for people that might not be able to find jobs elsewhere. And so if you're inundating them with electronics that don't work being returned, I think
yeah.
I think I mean, I saw a video recently where I think all Amazon returns just go somewhere. Like,
What, you haven't seen those videos where people buy the Amazon
yeah,
boxes?
yeah, right.
Oh, they're amazing.
I know, right? So, like, when you return that thing from Amazon, it's not like it goes back to Amazon for somebody else to buy it. It just goes into some hole, you know what I mean?
Well, it gets liquidated. There was a
Yeah,
shop in the industrial area here in Des Moines that I went and did some work on, and I walked in and there was like 12 people all at desks, and then there were these massive boxes that were full of shoestrings
yeah,
and lotion and just all these random household goods, and I'm
yeah,
like, what is this
yeah.
place? And the guy was like, oh, we
Uh-huh.
buy boxes of returns from Amazon, and then we list it on eBay.
I know.
And they're going through shoestrings
I
trying
know.
to find the mat, and I'm just going, this is insane.
It's absolutely insane. Have you ever rolled up on a yard sale and it's nothing but like Amazon return goods? That's the most depressing thing. We're just like,
I
oh
haven't seen
man.
that.
It happens occasionally around here where it's like you can see you're like, what is all this plastic? You know what I mean? Like when you're kind of doing the drive-by, like, do I see any vintage gear? And it's like, what's all that plastic? And I'll be like, oh, there's some electronics, and it's all just like, returned pile amplifiers or
Yeah,
something, you know what I mean? So I do think that there are some of that. I do think some of those business practices come into it where they're like, Let's put it online. They can't return it. They're not going to want to ship it back. It's almost like, LOL, the joke's on you. And we don't have to deal with people wanting to bring it back in the store.
Yeah, it keeps it out of the landfill too, as long as it's working. I mean, depending on what it is, a lot of times those, with an Amazon return, if it's an HDMI cable, at least,
I know.
it's an HDMI cable, somebody can use it.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I don't know, it's better than going in the landfill.
I agree. And that's the other thing too. I have a soft spot. Like, I love, the reason why I wanted to have a YouTube channel is because I love watching YouTube, like, first and foremost.
Me too.
And my favorite videos are just like during COVID. I don't know if you've ever watched like 12-volt vids, a guy fixing VCRs and stuff all day long. Like, I just love to see things repaired. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
old cars, radios, receivers, anything really.
Have you ever watched the carpet cleaning videos?
Yeah.
Those and the like the soccer mom vans getting detailed.
The detail.
It's like Cheetos and corn puffs all crammed into the carpet.
Yeah.
And they, it's a little bit what is that? SMSR?
ASMR.
There you go. That's it right there.
Yep.
And they're
my wife, those gross her out though. So I'm like, we could watch Alien Romulus where people are getting their faces ripped off, and she's like, great, but it's like, here's a Cheeto filled van. She's like, nope, no thanks.
Yeah. I like the before and after thing. I like that with the vintage part too.
Yeah.
I love getting a really disgusting receiver.
Yeah.
And taking photos of it like that, and then getting in there with Q-tips and toothbrushes and 409 and everything, and then having something when I'm done that just looks incredible. I mean, that is the most satisfying part of this job for me.
I love that. I love that you get to do that on a daily basis. Like, to me, that's just the coolest, because the very first receiver I ever like repaired, and I think everyone's first repair is just deox it and control. But I bought you know what I actually miss? I miss Craigslist. And I never thought I would say that. But there was a time when you could just reach out to a total stranger on Craigslist via email and just be like, I'm going to come by your house and buy this thing that you have listed. And I bought a Pioneer. I think it was like a SS636 or something right around that. But you know how it is. Like, the description was terrible. There was no photos. And so I show up. The person just left it on the porch, and it had been in a smoker's like attic. I mean, it was covered in just like that brown
orange.
Orange. Yeah. But man, I got that thing cleaned up and shining, and from that minute I was hooked. You know what I mean? I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like just making something old look new, and not even like have to look brand new, because like, I love like vintage car repair shows, but like sometimes if they take it too far, I'm like, I don't know, it's almost like brand new. Like, I like some patina. Like, I like that it lived a life.
Well, I like knowing that, I've said this before, but there is a truth to, even records that are old, or stereo equipment that is old. It's hard for me not to think about the family or the person that owned this 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and what they were listening to it on it. And if those vibes, those good feelings from that piece of equipment or record aren't in there in some weird way.
Yeah. My friend that sold me his Macintosh 2505 amp, like one of my just prized possessions, he was in Georgia. So he said he bought it from the guy who used to run Capricorn Records. So he was like, he was a great guy. He was like, man, there's probably some great Allman Brothers that's been played through this, So,
well, yeah, no, but that's I like that aspect of vintage. You buy a brand new piece of equipment, take it out of the box, and it, it's kind of sterile, in a way. Not to say that I don't love new equipment. I do. I like that aspect of it too. But I like the story and the history that goes with things that are old. And I think, when you're talking about the younger generation liking the tactile thing, I think there's some of that in there too. I don't think you have to be born or experience it when it was relevant to enjoy it now.
I agree. That 2505 amp too, I turned around, and after I put lamps in it, which was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life due to the glass, but I ended up letting a friend rent it, and it was a prop in that George and Tammy, the George and Wynette Tammy Wynette show that was on Showtime. It was in Billy Sherrill's office. Like, so I was like, what a great, like, it's already lived such a great life. Do you know what I mean? Like, between Capricorn and being on TV, like, that's the coolest thing ever, And I just got a cabinet for it. It's perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. We got another.
Awesome.
Hey guys, I have a stupid question. I am seeing Japanese CA1000 online, better price of CA1010. Recommend external. I have never used one.
Me either.
Everything I've ever had has been, either dual voltage or made for the U.S. market. So I've had this question before, and unfortunately, because I don't have any experience with it, I don't have really anything to offer, unfortunately. But I do appreciate the super chat.
That was awesome.
But,
hey, Kevin, I was just watching maybe your most recent video about cartridges, and you just bought like a killer record collection.
That thing is freaky.
Okay, so I got to ask you a question. There's a 13th Floor Elevators record in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Is it like an OG?
It's OG. Yeah. There was several OGs in there that are just bizarre. The Nico Velvet Underground is a 1968.
Oh man, I saw that one too.
It's not OG, but it does have the torso.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that record collection is silly. There was probably 50 or 60 sealed records even. I mean, the guy that owned that, because I bought it from a relative after he passed, because I would have definitely loved to have interviewed him, because he was a snob. The
best relatives are.
Well, no, the original owner, because
gotcha.
You could tell. Okay, so like Zeppelin, he had 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Pink Floyd, he had everything up to metal. So you could tell he was into looking for the next band.
Yeah, he was moving on.
Once their breakout album happened, he was done, and he wanted to look for the next thing. So he was kind of, he was a snob, and I can appreciate that though too, because I know it sounds snobby, but there's nothing worse than really being into a band. The last one I can remember, having this feeling was like, I was really into Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And I remember they were my band, and then you go to the mall and, kids that are 10 years younger than you are, and you're just like, they ruined it, and I know that's silly, but
it's not silly. I used to run, when I graduated from college, I started my own independent record label and helped friends release rock music in Nashville, a country music town. So therefore I ran out of money very quickly, but we had a lot of great experiences, and I signed some bands, ended up moving on to other bigger labels, and tried a little bit of artist management for a while, which wasn't necessarily for me, but I wasn't saying always, but so many times I knew the band before everyone else knew a band. And I just remember, like, so many people now, all those bands are going back out on tour. So it's like the Get Up Kids, or like the White Stripes, Jack White, something like that. People are like, oh, you're going to go see Jack White? I'm like, no, I saw the White Stripes in a 200 capacity club in a couple days before September 11th. Like, I have the poster right over there. Like, I don't ever want to see it again, because that's such an experience. You know what I mean? But the reason why I brought up that 13th Floor Elevators is because I have an OG copy too. Not to be kind of like braggy here.
No.
This is a great example of what we were talking about. I one day was on Facebook Marketplace, and some guy had 8 records, this and like a George Michael, and then 6 other records I couldn't even tell you what they were, all for like, I don't know, like $40 or something. And I just messaged immediately. I'm like, hey, I'm on my way. He was like, great.
Yeah.
And I bought all of them from him. I didn't ask. I didn't even look at it to see. I just was like, even if it's a reissue, it'll be fun to have, And sure enough, it's like a stereo OG. I think it's like a $600 record. I basically paid $8 for it when you do the math. But even better, and I think you'll understand this too, I got to know the guy really well. And he just started coming to me to sell his records.
Yeah.
And eventually they moved out of town. And he was like, can you come to our house and just buy whatever you want? And we've got some free stuff or whatever. And I said, yeah. And so I bought a bunch of records at his house. And on the way out, he was like, here, take this record. I don't know what it is. And it's some obscure band from Alabama called Felt. And it's $1,000 record.
Wow.
So
isn't that crazy?
To that point, like, a lot of us can spend a bunch of time in thrift stores, but relationships go so much farther than any of just the regular like commerce stuff. And that's why I've probably overpaid for things over and over and over, but at the end of the day, like those people always call you back, you know?
Well, and that's the other thing too. If you are going to garage sales and even thrift stores, it does not hurt to ask
It doesn't.
if they've got something. You don't know how many times I went to a garage sale and I'd see vinyl records sitting there, and I'd say, "You don't happen to have a stereo, do you?"
Mhm.
And how many times? Oh yeah, come on back in. And it's like any valuable receiver, because it's
Yeah.
just a story, but it happened quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
And I hear that story quite often too.
Yeah.
You just got to ask.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I think the overall just like driving thrift store to thrift store is going to be very frustrating for a lot of people. But I'm telling you, you hit once and you'll be
Yeah,
addicted. You'll be addicted, and you'll be like, I got to go back tomorrow. What if they have something?
that's the truth. Here in Iowa, because our weather is so bad,
Yeah.
we do have a couple called thrift malls.
Okay.
We're well, like,
Like an antique mall.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because we're all so we all have cabin fever. You can't go anywhere. You can't go outside.
Yeah.
That's where I go.
That's awesome.
At least once a week, I throw on earbuds and headphones, and I just walk through the antique mall just to move my legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I need to move.
Yeah.
And so, thrift stores and stuff like that, where you're talking about, the people sitting there waiting for them to open. It's not a bad way to get a little bit of exercise, get a route going.
Yeah.
And if you need some supplemental income, you see all the people. I haven't gone to a Goodwill in 5 years and not seen somebody on their phone with the eBay app open on the sold listing, and then they're just scanning stuff, and
I know.
But hey, you're having trouble getting a job. You don't want a boss.
Yeah.
You want to work at your convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of value out there in things that you and I would never. I always tell people this too when they give me grief about, like, if I post a video about expensive selling CDs and they're like, "That's ridiculous, no one would pay that." And I'm like, guys, there's collectors for everything. I went to an estate sale where a lady had hundreds of salt and pepper shakers. I mean, just hundreds. You know what I mean? And then one lady was obsessed with horses. There was just horse stuff everywhere. So there's collectors for everything. You just got to keep going out. But when you get a hit, and it doesn't have to be anything big. You know what I mean? It's just be like, wow, this is like a cool thing. Like I tell, like, when I'm driving by the store, I'm almost like, it's a spidey sense. Do you know what I mean? And most of the time it's wrong, but sometimes it's like, oh man, like I was just going to be on my lunch break, swung in and found something awesome, and then I'll spend a whole weekend and not find anything. I love antique malls just because it's such a great place to see things that are interesting, regardless of your hobby, and just to even just see an old advertisement or an old movie poster, something along those lines. I just think that that's like the most fun thing. And oftentimes when my wife and I plan vacations, we like to go to like just random cities like Columbus, Ohio. Do you know what I mean? And we just set up record stores, antique malls, thrift stores, and it's awesome. It's great.
My wife and I is the same way. Our initial dates for years was going thrifting because she collects vintage Pyrex. And it got me into vintage Pyrex. She has now that stuff is just kind
crazy,
of through the roof.
Yeah.
I don't know what her collection's worth. I don't, she doesn't really inquire in mine, and I don't inquire in hers, but
you're saying there's no Discogs for Pyrex.
Yeah, right. There should be, though, because
Worth Point or whatever it is,
it's kind of crazy how much some of that stuff's going for.
Yeah, I know.
But it made it fun for us. That was our date. We would just hit the thrifts and the antique malls, and I'd walk out with a pile of records and a cassette deck. That didn't work, and she'd come out with a few new pieces of Pyrex to add to her collection. At least we got Ed. We got what's happening, man?
Ed's the best.
Oh, Ed's awesome.
Ed is another person I call, and I'm like, am I thinking about this correctly? And then he explains it to me in a way that I would have never been able to figure out on my own.
Yeah, Pyrex, I love it too, man. She definitely got me into that stuff.
What I'm starting to get more like addicted with is like ephemera from like the 90s. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like posters, like, pamphlets or zines or things like that, things that will never be made. They're always going to be reissuing records. Do you know what I mean? But like But just like cool things, you know, that like, you know, I always kind of save that stuff anyway as a punk rock kid, you know, be like, oh, here's my Maximum Rock and Roll, you know, but like,
I got something cool. I'll be right back.
oh, nice, cool. I don't know if I should just keep telling my Maximum Rock and Roll story or not, but it's actually really, I think I actually still have those from shopping at Tower Records. We used to have a great Tower Records in Nashville for anyone that might have been from around this area, and they would stay open until midnight, and I would go from 9 o'clock until 11:30 and just do it, you know. So just do my shopping.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I threw you under the bus there, but you reminded me of something, because I'm the same way. The other day I was on the Goodwill, and this just popped up, and to a lot of people, you know, there's no value in it. I've got more in the frame than I do. You know, I mean, like by a lot. I think I paid $10 for this.
Yeah,
but it's Matt Season above, and it is like an insert.
No kidding.
So it was dated in 95, you know, from Columbia Records, but it was kind of like a leaflet or a handout.
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was so it's original, and it was $12.
That's amazing.
And our mailman's here. Thank you, Brett. Yeah. I appreciate it, man. It's all right there. Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you. But yeah, that's cool. Thing, you know, it was $12. Really I think I paid maybe $100 to have it framed.
Yeah, but
again, it doesn't have any value to
you
anybody.
Never know, though.
But like, to me, I love it.
But what's weird is like the things that we don't value because we were in the moment are valuable to people that are now 2 generations apart from us, and I love that. I think that's so cool. I just bought, a friend of mine called me to his house. He had some stuff. He had these Kid A lithographs that came out with Radiohead, and they were like a promo thing or whatever. And he was like, there were 3 of them, you know what I mean? And he was like, I don't even. And I was like, I'm buying these for myself. And I gave him probably way too much, but I was like, I just want to frame them and have them, because how many people, everybody's going to have Kid A on vinyl, but like how many people are going to still have the lithographs that went with it? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that kind of niche stuff is really becoming more and more, even more interesting for me. So,
well, it is me too. Cause I mean, yeah, I agree. I like the rarity stuff, even though I don't know, and it's even more fun that you can buy that for $12.
Oh, I love
you know,
and
somebody hung on to it. You know, there's no corner dings or anything like that. If I would have had that in 1995 or 96, it'd be destroyed.
Destroyed. My I just bought a Ramones Brain Drain poster. Like, you remember the Brain Drain? It's kind of like a painted cover, like looks like kind of anyway. It was at my local record store. I think they wanted like $50 for it, and it was there for a while, and I was like, whoa. I had just overlooked it, and they were like, yeah, everybody keeps asking, but they don't want to pay it. And I was like, I will buy that for $50. You can't find that poster anywhere. And what I don't think people realize is I buy it because I love that band and that record, but that stuff's probably going to be more valuable than the copy of the album I have in 20 years, you know what I mean, when my kids have it, you know.
Well, I'm the same. You didn't buy it for, you know, to increase your money down the road. You bought it because, and the same thing. I don't care if that thing goes out. I'm never selling it. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, I'm gonna put it on my wall, and I'm gonna enjoy it until it's over. So
I love that record, by the way. Lane Staley. Listen, we should just do like a whole live stream sometime and just talk about how unfair it is for our generation, who has lost so many great vocalists,
especially that generation.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, all of our lead singers are gone. Like, we don't have Kurt Cobain, we don't have Lane Staley.
Well, the only one left is Eddie Vedder. It's easier to say there's Eddie Vedder,
I know,
than because the rest of them are gone.
People give me grief about being a Pearl Jam fan, which I still haven't quite figured out. I think you either love them or you hate them. But I'm going to see them twice in May. They're playing in Nashville, and I got tickets to both shows. And people kind of give me grief, and I'm like, they're one of the few bands of my generation that's still left to go see. Like, I just love it. You know what I mean? So it's wild.
I'm not a big Pearl Jam fan. I mean, but you know, who cares? You know,
it's true. It is true.
No, yeah. There's just, for me, it was more about Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, you know, Mother Love Bone, all that kind of.
I love all that.
You know, that good stuff. But
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I wasn't that big of a Nirvana fan either. I really wasn't. And it's not that I don't understand it. You know, and I appreciate them for what they did, and you know, I can see the integrity in it. it just didn't grab me back then. That's all, you know.
Well, that's the biggest thing that whenever I'm talking to people about anything related to this YouTube thing or audio or music or whatever, it's like I can tell you what I like, but you tell me what you like. And the good news is neither of us is wrong. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
You're only wrong if you think what you like is better than me, and that in theory is kind of a wrong thing to think in general, you know?
You know what's kind of funny about that though? We talk about this quite a bit because, you know, we do have a brick and mortar store.
Yeah.
And those conversations that you could say your opinion,
yeah,
and nobody gets offended about it. Yeah. You don't get backlash for it.
Yeah.
We all just go, yeah, that makes sense. You like it. I don't. There's no problem here.
Yeah.
You know, it's music.
Yeah.
Those conversations, you put them online.
Oh yeah.
And they become
Nice
this
knowing,
really, and it's so sad. And I've said this before. That is the best part about having a brick and mortar store related to vintage or audio or records or anything like that, because people are different when they are in a room together, and you know, they're sharing ideas, they're agreeing on disagreeing about everything, and it's really good. And that gets so lost so quickly. And it seems like the more that this goes away, being those human interactions, and they become more online, you know, hopefully there's a backlash to this. Hopefully, you know, humans get better about only dealing in social, you know, online, because as of right now, it doesn't look like, you know, things are getting better in that aspect of life.
I agree with you. I think that's why I like doing record shows rather than selling records online, because somebody can pick it up and be like, oh, my dad had this record. I remember listening to it growing up, and be like, oh, yeah, you know, or like I'll sell a Fugazi record and it's like, oh, this record blew my mind. I'm like, yeah, you know, like In on the Kill Taker was like my record. And they're like, no way. I didn't even think about that one, you know? And like, we have these great, like, and they're not very long, just these little quick comments, you know? And especially when younger generations are coming up and buying music that, like, I kind of thought people just, you know, Soundgarden, like I sell Mad Season CDs like crazy. Alice in Chains, I can't keep in stock at all. And I think it's just so cool because it's not that I'd grown out of that. I just forgot what it meant to me at that age, and to see them find that meaning brings it back to me. And now I have all that stuff, you know, and I've been picking it up all again. The Nirvana thing, I always tell people my favorite Nirvana record is not even really a record. It was like Incesticide, which is all their B-sides, and like kind of when they were goofing off, because it was like the rawest that they could be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what's funny is people always talk about seeing them live, and I bet they had a lot of energy, but their live recordings are some of the hardest things to listen to. I always buy them and I'm like, why did I buy this? Like, it's just screaming.
I think, well, there's a lot of bands I've seen though that it really is, and I could see Nirvana being like this. It is all about the energy and the physicality, and being there in that room makes it great. You know, you don't want it to be a carbon copy of the studio version, because most likely the studio version isn't as good as the live performance. You know, I mean, you know this, especially if you did A&R work back in the day. You know, there are bands that I didn't think I would like live that, you know, I either prefer them one way or the other.
I agree. You know, but back to your point about like the social aspects, I think that's what makes your business and record stores so important, right? Like, we need places where we can go and find people like what we like, even if it's just the hobby itself. It may be a different opinion within that hobby, but don't let that different opinion keep you from interacting with someone that overall likes the hobby. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what's most important. And like, there's just like a loneliness epidemic, I think, with everybody being on their phones all the time. And it's like, the more you can be in a store, every time I'm in a record store, I run into someone I know, and it's the best feeling. Do you know what I mean? But if I'm not going out to that store, there's a good chance I might be like, I don't feel like going to that thing tonight. Do you know what I mean? And blow it off. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
well, and this hobby is lonely just in general. I mean, this is a one-man show or a one-person show. You know, I know it was different back in the day. You know, I think it's more of an age thing where all of his buddies would get together and we'd hang out and listen to music and stuff, but that doesn't happen anymore, at least with me. You know, I want to sit in the sweet spot usually, or I just want to doze off, and I don't want to interact with people. I want to listen to music, you know? So,
well, it's also different when you do it for a living, right? Like, it's like, oh man, I've been doing this all day, and now I'm going to go to somebody's house and discuss it in Macintosh and Paisley.
Oh God, no, please. You know,
I get
Yeah.
that same thing too, where it's sometimes people like even at like when I'm selling at a table, they'll get into something really granular and I'll just be like, I'll just try to change the subject. You know what I mean? Because I'll be like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that pressing sounds better than this pressing. I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
like it's a great record. Or what about this? Like
Sure.
it can get kind of too granular sometimes, but
Yeah. No, I think the record stores and the electronic store, especially the record stores, though, I think they might be one of the last hopes
yeah.
of of brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Because brick and mortar is scary.
I
It really is. And I think people they want to a reason to go out,
yeah.
and get out of the house. And because there is still such a good supply of used records,
Yep.
it's enough of an enticement to get people to go, because besides records or something used that I can't purchase on Amazon or Walmart,
Yep.
I mean, besides wanting to support a local business, there really isn't much incentive to go.
Yeah. I am jealous of your business. Just gonna put that out on the just like I think it's the coolest thing. And I have a small booth in an antique mall that I pay rent for, but I don't have to be there. Like I'm not paying the overhead and all that stuff. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been very successful for me. And so I'm like, what if I could take that to the next level? You know what I mean? But then I look around and I'm like, I can't afford to rent a place around here. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's like sort of the whole other thing. It's like so much of this corporate owned real estate is so expensive that it's hard to have these unique small retail businesses that we can go and have this experiences within. So whenever I find one, I just want to go and shop as much as possible because I want them to stay in business, basically is what I'm saying. Because
I think
I've done the numbers. I don't know how it works. I'm proud of you. That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, I appreciate it. I do think, though, that a lot of people miss out on one element when they think about how scary it would be to open up a shop like this. And this, I don't want, you're able to buy at a lower cost.
Yeah.
And I know some people are going to have an issue with that don't run a business.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm making less money than I was at the job before. I mean, there's no reason to get into this business if you're wanting to make money. There's a million other ones to do.
Agreed.
So, but the advantage is that some people don't want to sell online.
Yep.
They don't want to go through the process, especially with an estate. They want to bring it to one place. They want to get a fair value for it, and they want to move on with their life.
Yeah.
And that is the only way that I am able to keep going, is that I can buy larger collections at cheaper prices because of that one reason, where somebody passes on and a relative from another state has got a weekend to come up and clear out their estate. They want it all gone at one time. They want to hand it to me. Otherwise, there just wouldn't be any way to make it lucrative. So if you have a brick and mortar space, you can find a cheap place to rent. It doesn't need to be, on prime real estate, because people are going to look for you.
Yeah, that is true.
You don't need trouble. You won't have trouble advertising if you're selling vintage stereo equipment and vinyl records. You just won't.
Yeah.
So if you could get a place somewhat, reasonable, I think the amount of product that will come in at a reduced price will make up for the rent pretty quick.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've seen.
I really want to do it. Like I want to do, my problem is I think being here in the South and we're out in the suburbs, like the spaces are too big. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't need 3,000 square feet at
we have 1,100.
I watched your videos and I'm like, that's like the perfect space. There was a record store that just opened up recently in Nashville, super small. And actually they're having to move because they've been so popular. They're already expanding. But I told my wife walked in, she was like, this would be perfect. And I'm like, I know. It's like just a little bit of a walk space, just tons of records, whatever. You know what I mean? And my booth is 10 by 9. You know what I mean? And and I've got it stock full, and like a big piece sells, and I got to drive down there and put something else out because I don't want to have too many things. No, too many choices. People won't buy what I got.
That's absolutely true.
but like I think I could take it to that next level. You got to get the kids out of college and get everything lined up. But that's part of it. What's been fun about the YouTube thing too is like for me, you know, I've been struggling with the identity of my channel a little bit because like I did kind of get into a reviewing thing, and I really am interested in. You've done such a great job of tying your business into Skylab that I'd love to be able to figure out how to do that a little bit, and even if it is just having like some stuff that I sell on a website, that people could just buy direct for me. That's why I've been trying to ask people to consider signing up for my newsletter a little bit more than just the YouTube subscription.
What
Where
do you offer on? Now's a good time to talk about a newsletter. If you've got something new coming out, what are you offering in the newsletter?
The big thing with the newsletter is that when you subscribe to my newsletter, it will actually, once you confirm it, there's always those like multiple steps, but once you confirm it, it actually will send you my personal email address. This is kind of crazy. And so you can just go on there and just email me any question that you have, especially because what I find is a lot of people are struggling when they're thinking about which CD player do I buy, you know what I mean? And they get hung up on two, or which DAC, or which this. And so for right now, it's more of just like a free to use service. Like, hey, I'm thinking this or that. I've got these speakers. I got this. Oh, this is the one I like, or this is the one that I think you might like, and just getting that one-on-one service. That's really kind of like the best thing ever. So my wife just brought me a coffee. If you go to foreveranalog.net, which is my website, on the right-hand side, there's a place to sign up. Or if you go to any of my recent CD videos, the first pinned comment has a link there too.
Cool.
And you can click on that. And I just want to be able to reach people. It's also a great place where I can tell you the shows I'm selling at, because this might be an interesting place to mention this. I don't know. Are you going to Expona?
I'm going this year. Yeah.
I'm going to
sell.
I'm going to sell.
Oh, cool. Down in the market.
Yeah, I'm scared out of my mind about it, Kevin.
Oh, don't. Well, if it's your first time, I mean, I was intimidated last year just because I'd never been to a trade show. But, going back now, I'm like,
Yeah. I think I'm mostly scared about not like a 3-day show with like 10,000 people. Like I'm used to going like to this show tomorrow for 8 hours and, setting up 3 boxes of records and some CDs, so now I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to take? Like, what do I get? Like I'm in my head about it, but
you'll get to meet Chad.
Oh, awesome.
Chad works the booth.
Does he? Yeah. Well, so that was the other kind of cool thing too, is I was like, I could walk around and visit but like I only need to listen to a couple $100,000 speakers before I'm sort of just like antsy and ADD and want to do something else.
Sure.
And so I'm like, well, it'd be cool to have like a home base, and if somebody wanted to come by and say hi, like high five, we can do it, and I've brought I just made some little record tote bags, let's say Forever Analog and stuff like that. So I'm going to be bringing records and CDs and stuff, and trying to sell those there at Expona. So I haven't really announced that yet. So breaking news.
Hey, cool. Yeah, right.
But I will be able to shake hands.
I'll definitely stop in.
Yeah.
The marketplace is I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just because the thrifter, and there's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But you'll enjoy that, man. It's going to be a fun time.
I think it's going to be great. Lenny's been helping me, Lenny from from YouTube. And he's been talking me off the ledge when I get a little too in my head about it. So, but he's like, you're going to do great. I'm like, I'm actually excited about doing great. Sometimes I'm worried I might just not bring enough and just sell it, but then I guess I could just sit there and say to people like, well, next year I'll bring more stuff. So
just make sure to bring, some type of leaflet or handout that you can, So
a little QR code for the fans.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty cool. I just love sitting and having stuff and talking to people like we've already mentioned. So I think it's going to be a fun experience,
You're going to get your fair share there. You will.
I'm excited though. I think it's going to be fun.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah,
we should probably wrap up.
I know.
Man.
I can go on forever. I apologize.
I know I can too. Well, there's a few subjects that it never stops, and music, thrifting, vintage stereos. It's like
I know.
It can go forever.
I feel like I'm just sort of kind of coming in with some of these the bigger YouTube channels like yourself and Randy and everyone and Matt and Ed and everyone. Everyone is so nice. Like it's so cool. And I feel like there's all these kind of cool, fun friendships. And so like I think like the more we can do these things and maybe even not talk about gear, if we just talk about music or concerts or something like that, you know, kind of gives a little bit of a fresh perspective on some of the just straight gear reviews that we do, or just talking about products, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
this has been so much fun.
I would love to do you know, just a music stream or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, Randy's invited me to his channel a couple times, you
Yeah.
know, and he's like, hey, you know, you want to do a live stream? And I think my response was, as long as it's not about vintage stereo equipment, you know. And
That's it,
it's,
right?
well, it's not because I don't like that. It's just, it's nice to be able to talk about something different, and
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
just that simple.
I agree.
Because the vintage will always come into
Yeah.
the conversation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but not focusing on it at least allows me to, you know, think about something that's a little bit more fun.
Oh,
That's all.
totally, totally,
So
totally. Well,
I'm always down.
speaking of fun, this has been a blast, and I
Absolutely,
feel
man.
honored that you asked. I have loved watching your channel sort of explode. I feel like I was watching a video last year, and it was like, congrats on 40, and now you're at 100K, which is just
Yeah,
awesome.
a couple of videos like 4 months ago or something just took off.
Love it.
And you know, and thank you, but I really have no idea why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm not gonna try and figure out why. I
No, no, don't,
just move forward. You
don't.
know, that's all it is.
Well, what I found on YouTube is the more value we can offer to people, like the better the videos will do. So at the end of the day, I think that's what you guys do a great job of, is walking
Well,
people through this confusing hobby. So
no, but you as well. You know,
yeah, thank you.
we talked about it. We talked about you this week when I said we were going to do a live stream, and all the feedback I got was that you seem really genuine. You're not trying to, you know, put on a show or anything. You're just trying to give good, honest information in an entertaining way, and that's it, in my
That's it.
opinion.
Listen,
You know,
thank you. I appreciate that. My most popular videos are how to connect a DAC to a CD player, how to
yeah,
connect your turntable to a receiver without a phono input. You know what I mean? Like there's
yeah,
what is a preamp? That's one of the first videos I ever made, because a friend of mine bought a preamp at a garage sale and didn't. He was like, "How do I hook speakers up to this?" And I was like, "That's a preamp." And he's like, "What's a preamp?" And I was like, "Wow." People
yeah.
don't know what a preamp is. And so there's so much, as this hobby grows and people are coming into it, like that gives us so much great opportunity to talk about these things that we love, and share that information with others.
Well, I
That's
mean,
what excites me
and the
about it.
reality, really, the reality of it for me was I mean, I am a YouTube junkie.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I really am. I have learned so much from YouTube,
Yeah.
from fixing my water heater, and I'm not kidding,
I know.
you know, and then to running a business, how to get an LLC, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't learn from books, I
Yep.
learn from watching. So
Yep.
YouTube has been a literal
Yeah.
godsend
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And so my thought going into this was, you know, I don't care how it does. I'm going to try and give back to this community because I
Awesome.
think I've got something different. You know, there's not a lot of vintage stereo shops in the
Yeah.
world. And
Yeah.
if I can give some information back as just karma,
Yeah.
then cool.
I know.
And
It's the best.
here we are. So
Yeah. That's a
great.
great way to end.
Yeah, man. I appreciate everybody watching.
Yeah.
I'm
me too.
sorry. I know you know, we didn't get to a lot of
Yeah.
comments, but you know, sometimes you get going and
I
it's
talk a
hard to
lot.
pay attention. Well, I do too if it's something I enjoy. So
I enjoy good conversation, and sometimes I forget
too.
about commenters, so I apologize.
Yeah, but thank you, Aaron. I
Yeah, thank
definitely
you, Kevin.
appreciate it, and
Yeah.
we'll do it again
Yeah.
sometime,
I'm
somewhere.
ready. I'm ready. All right, buddy.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thank
See
you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.